Happy Monday, happy Monday. Welcome to our Mind Style Makeover Monday. Hello, Sierra. Hello. If it's your first time catching one of my live broadcasts or watching this in the replay once it posts, my name is Tabitha Christopher of tabithachristopher.com. My company founded the Mind Style Makeover Bootcamp, also known as MSMBC. It is a character and resilience building training program that provides students with a roadmap to succeed academically, athletically, socially, and emotionally. Tonight, we're going to be talking about mastering the art of staying calm. If you find yourself oftentimes when you're in a pickle or life throws a curveball at you, and or you may find yourself in the middle of a confrontational situation and you're like deer in headlights, don't know what to do. You typically have to walk away, and then maybe days later you have a solution that comes to mind of what you think you should have said, what you would have said if the situations was different, yada yada yada, etc. If you find yourself finding it difficult to remain calm in challenging situations, I would encourage you to tune in to tonight's Mind Style Makeover Monday chat. And if you're not that person, if you operate well in chaos, but you enjoy a good story, then tune in. I have a script here in front of me so I can stay on task in delivering to you three powerful tips that will aid in building emotional resilience in what can oftentimes be a very chaotic world. Let's dive in. So, what I want to share with you all tonight really transformed, well, is one of the things that helped to transform the way that I face challenges and stay calm. Even when life throws you right into the heart of your biggest fears. Now, I don't mean just a little stress. No, I'm talking about two of my greatest fears colliding all at once. Let me take you back to 2011. I'd only been in California for less than 2 years, living up in the mountains of Sun Valley. Now, life had been one test after another. 3 close calls with death, some wild run ins, and I was adjusting to this new life in California where it seemed like every day had its own surprise. But I was excited because I was working my dream job as a trainer at a gym in Glendale. Word was spreading about my transformative programs, and things were really starting to take off. But you know how life goes, right? Just when you think that things are settling down, it throws you a curveball. Now, picture this. It's late. Close to 11 p.m. I just finished my last session at the gym and I finally had my own car after months of hiking up that dark mountain every night. But that night, rain unexpectedly hit South California out of nowhere. Heavy, pounding rain that had everyone on edge. And my fear of driving up steep inclines was right there, staring me down, waiting for me to slip up on that mountain road. As I got closer to the base of the mountain, my heart was racing, my breath got shallow, and that familiar panic started creeping in. It got to the point of where I had to pull over just to catch my breath. Gripping the steering wheel, and bracing myself for what felt like an impossible climb on those conditions. But then, just as I thought I couldn't handle any more, I felt it. That eerie feeling like I wasn't alone. Parked at the base of that mountain in the dark, right next to a whole group of very thick brush that a small group of people or sizable wildlife could easily hide in day and especially at night. Now, at that time, I gotta preface this to let you know, at that time there was news reports that were circulating warning about the gang, the what is it, the MS-13s that had infiltrated the area and was quickly making their way up to specifically the Sun Valley area. So my mind was racing with all kinds of possibilities of what or who this could be staring through the window on the passenger side of my car. I looked slowly toward my right, out the passenger window, and there it was, staring me down, a wolf, a full grown wolf that was so large in size that it had to bend its head downward in order to peer through the glass of my window of my Honda. My Honda, what was I driving? A Honda? I think it was a Honda Accord. Honda Accord, the sedan, that the sedan version that just came out in 2011. With his eyes fixed on me, I literally felt my breath and life start to leave my body. In that moment, my other fear of dangerous, unknown predators came crashing in, heightening everything. But here's what's wild. That wolf was actually the turning point. It was like a strange, terrifying gift. I knew I had no choice. Either I stayed there and faced the wolf, or I pushed through my fear and climbed the mountain in my new car, rain and all. That wolf gave me the nudge I needed to conquer the first fear and drive up that mountain. What's going on, Jamal? And that night taught me some powerful lessons on staying calm, which I want to share with you tonight. Now, here are 3 tips that I took from that situation that I believe will help you to remain calm in any situation, no matter what life throws your way. Tip number 1, acknowledge the fear. Now, we talked about this last week where I said it's to not allow for the fear to become your identity, meaning you're not embracing it. You're like, oh, let me just lean into it. No, acknowledge. Okay, yeah, I'm afraid. So when fear hits, the natural response for us is to tense up and freeze, fight against it, or take flight. But the thing is, when you tense up or you fight against it, it can make things worse. Instead, when you acknowledge, okay, yeah, all right, I see you, fear. Okay, I feel it, recognize it for what it is. When I felt the panic rising, I didn't push it away. I acknowledged it, and then I shifted into the next thought of what is it that I need to do in order to move through successfully through this challenge, right? So take a moment, acknowledge it, and then refocus your thinking on what's the best solution for me. And if you're in a situation where you're, involved with other people, what's the best situation for me and these other individuals that could be affected by this situation? So acknowledge and then refocus. Tip number 2, shift your focus to what's within your control. So while I was in the car, I couldn't control the rain. I couldn't control that I had to climb up the mountain in order to get home, but I could control my thoughts about the situation in order to help me to regulate better my breathing, and the decision to keep moving. In any overwhelming situation, if you can find even the smallest thing that you can control, often it's as simple as your thoughts. It's as simple as what you're allowing to consume you in that moment, your thinking, which will then affect your breathing pattern, right? Focus on what you can control and let that be your anchor in that moment. Tip number 3, use fear as fuel, not a cage. So that wolf staring me down became the reason I pushed forward. Sometimes fear itself can give you, well, I'll say this. Let me say this. The wolf definitely was an incentive for me to keep going because in a situation like that, I can't control a wild animal of any size, especially a wolf that I came to learn later on. Hello, Leyland. I hope I'm saying it right. Okay. When I finally got to the house at the top of the mountain, and I told my landlords what I had encountered at the base before I started to make that climb, they told me about the behavior of wolves, that they typically, when they're going after a sizable prey, I would have been a sizable prey, they typically would track that prey for days. They could be tracking that prey for, a few days to several days to weeks before it learns, because it is strategizing in learning its prey's pattern of behavior so that it will know what method of surprise it needs to use to effectively take that prey out easily. So there's no telling how long that wolf was tracking me when I was without the car, making that climb up in the dark of the night to get to the house. What I was doing, I didn't share this with you, there was a shortcut that you could take to avoid the steepest part of the mountain. And that shortcut would help you to like meander about. And I definitely was thankful for that shortcut because after a full day of working in the gym on my feet, working with clients, stretching them, getting their bodies ready to train and so forth, I was tired. I was very tired. So I welcomed that shortcut many of those nights So there's no telling how long the wolf was tracking me. But that night, when I was sitting in that car and I was faced with the first fear of having to drive up this incredibly steep incline of a mountain in rain that was coming down vehemently, and the unfamiliarity with how that new car would handle the steepness of the mountain. So all of these things are just layering atop of each other. And then here's this wolf. And I had to make a decision at that moment. Am I going to allow for this fear of going up? I said, I have to get to the house. I said, eventually I have to get home, right? Or I can stay here with this wolf, this sizable wolf, which that the glass on that car really was not a really good barrier to keep that wolf from coming in at me if and when it was ready to do so. So I either could have waited there to find out what it was going to do, or I could have just get gone, right? So using fear as a fuel and not allowing it to own you in that moment. So again, first acknowledge, yeah, this situation it's coming down on me pretty hard. It's scary. All right. I acknowledge I do feel afraid, and this is why I feel afraid. But then in this moment, I need to refocus because I've got to find a solution to get out of this situation, right? To get to a place of calm. And so then tip number two, shifting your focus to what's within your control in that situation, even if it's the smallest thing. In that moment for me, what I did have in control was I was in the vehicle, and I could control my thinking and the decision that I was going to make next, to either stay stuck or I could move forward to get out of now a situation that could go out of my control, way out of my control with that wild predator. So then tip number three, using fear as fuel. That wolf was an incentive for me to get gone. And I did. Okay. And, some would say fear can be an incredible motivator, um, when you allow it to propel you rather than stop you. And for me, I would like to reframe that and state that whenever we learn how to control what we focus on in that moment, that decision of focusing on the decision and focusing on the thought that we want to lean into, it's what's going to then shape the reality of our identity of who we really are and activate the resilience that's within us. So that wolf incentivized me to move forward in faith, that I could conquer the first fear of making that ascent up that steep mountain in the dark, in the rain of that night. Here's two bonus tips that I want to share with you all, and then we'll close out. Bonus tip number one is to visualize the success before you act. Before I drove up that mountain, I did take a second to visualize making it to the top safely. Now, this can help in so many situations. Picturing a successful outcome, and you'll create a clear mental path forward, even when the road feels steep or foggy. Bonus tip number two is to practice calming routines daily. For me, one of the things that I do at the very top of the day, and I've now been implementing it more frequently in the middle of the day, and then at the end of the day, is meditating. Meditating on one short statement of truth, one short statement of the truth of who I am created to be. Meditating on that, meditating on thoughts that's true, the thoughts that are worthy, full of hope, thoughts that are inspirational, thoughts that are praiseworthy, of good report, meditating on that, practicing that daily, so that when that moment comes where you will be tested and you will get tested, you would have built up your resilience, your emotional resilience, so much so that you're able to move forward through that challenge with greater ease than before. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me tonight for the Mind Style Makeover Monday. And I want you to remember that no matter how big or small the mountain is ahead of you, you've got what it takes to reach the top. Lean into the truth of who you've been created to be: power, love, and a sound mind, so you can stay focused and own your story. God bless. I look forward to seeing you all on our next Mind Style Makeover Monday.